Generally, state law requires municipalities to finalize next year's budget by December 31st, but allows amendments up to February 15th based upon municipal election. Municipal leaders can't fully predict how COVID-19 will impact their revenue and expenses over the next 12 months. They're going to need some flexibility in their budget so they can respond to changes as they come. As a financial services practice area leader for HRG, it's my job to help our municipal clients with challenges like this. So I've invited Lee Stinnett to share some ideas for how municipalities can build that flexibility into their 2021 budgets and still comply with the associated legal requirements. Lee is an attorney with Salzman Hughes, where he serves as solicitor and special counsel to several municipalities and municipal authorities. Thanks for joining us, Lee.
Adrian, thanks for having me today. I think this is a really timely topic. This is really an unprecedented time across the nation and throughout the world. And I really believe that my municipal clients, my municipal authorities, they're really going to have to step outside their comfort zone in the next year to craft budgets that really satisfy their needs, but are also flexible, because we really don't know what's going to happen as we move into the winter and the early part of next year.
You and I came up with 5 great ideas for municipalities to consider in order to build flexibility into their 2021 budget. Let's go through them one by one.
Great. I think the first is think about those funds that you currently have that may be unencumbered, or that as you're currently working through your budget process, you've left unencumbered. And generally speaking, unencumbered funds are any funds that are not allocated for payment of debt or from a special purpose levy or assessment. I also generally recommend that you avoid considering your enterprise funds as unencumbered. You know, those funds are really dedicated for those enterprise type topics like sewer, water, stormwater in today's time. And there are a lot of ways you can handle that. First, you can make supplemental appropriations from those funds or from other revenue sources that you might incur, such as borrowings. And generally speaking, you can also transfer those unencumbered funds from one fund to another for those unexpected expenses you might expect to incur next year. Generally speaking, when you want to look at transferring these unencumbered funds or supplemental appropriations, as they're often called in the municipal statutes, that's going to be accomplished via a resolution. So I think that as you move into next year and you're building your budget, which, you know, we're in October and coming up on October, that's going to be something you'll want to start looking at as an option to use. However, I recommend being conservative in your use of those funds. We really don't know where this is heading with any level of accuracy. So I think everyone should exercise some conservative financing going forward. Another option for municipalities is going to be reevaluating the use of the cash they currently have on hand that they're holding for capital projects. Often, it's a very good rate-making idea or concept to use cash on the barrelhead, pay-as-you-go, where you use cash you have sitting in your accounts to finance your capital projects. It helps protect long-term rates, but it also is just a good option for lowering interest rates and lowering the borrowing costs. However, we're not in those normal times. It might be a little bit of a better idea or a more conservative idea to look at those proceeds or those funds you have and consider using those to offset some of your other expenses that you expect will be a little tight because of decreasing tax revenue as we move through COVID. Again, when it comes to COVID, we haven't really been able to predict much of anything with accuracy to date. So I don't think that we should expect that we can just magically come up with the perfect plan to evaluate our budget going forward.
And right now, our clients have seen current tax exempt rates fixed as low as 1% for 10 years. So using a rate like that, a municipality would pay around $105,000 per year in debt service for every $1 million they borrowed. This would leave about 90% of that capital cost as cash on hand for operating expenses during the upcoming year.
And I think that's a very good point, considering where interest rates are today. Although it's often a good idea to use that cash you have in this interest rate environment, you might be better served by using debt to provide additional funds for those public health, safety, welfare items that you really need to be cognizant of.
And the Laguda Act limits the amount of money a municipality can borrow at any given time. So they'll need to know how much borrowing capacity they have before exploring this option, right, Lee?
Yeah, I think you should talk to a financial consultant that maybe like Adrian here to help you evaluate where you're at in your Laguda borrowing limits to see if there are any things that you might want to change, or I think Adrian's going to talk about that here shortly, in order to sort of clear some headroom for additional borrowings that you might not have been expecting, but you might need to incur in 2021.
Water, sewer, and stormwater debts are great candidates for self-liquidation. Any infrastructure that's associated with a service fee, really. Municipalities can use the fee revenue to self-liquidate all or a portion of the debt with a filing to DCED. Then it wouldn't count toward the municipal borrowing limits.
And that's important because in addition to self-liquidating debt, there are other types of debt that a lot of municipalities have started to consider in light of the uncertain times. One of those are tax anticipation notes. And I want to recommend strongly that everyone exercise caution to conservatively estimate your 2021 tax revenue collections, because as current statutory requirements have established Laguda, that tax anticipation note is required to be repaid within the same calendar year or fiscal year that it is incurred. There is legislation pending that might extend that period, but as the law is written now, that has to be repaid in the same calendar year. So I don't want clients to overestimate the amount of tax revenue they may collect, because if they're already struggling with the revenue, it's unlikely that they'll just find additional revenue that they can pay off the tax anticipation note, and they'll have to try and further kick the can down the road, which is not good financial planning. Another option might be to negotiate long-term equipment and service contracts to reduce operating expenses in the beginning of 2021. If you sign a multi-year lease for operating equipment or a multi-year contract for office supplies, for instance, you may be able to delay payments from the beginning of 2021, when we expect the most concern about financing, to later in the year where municipalities are really better able to plan their revenue streams around their actual expenses and also their income received through taxes. You might be able to structure the payments in a way that you can also delay the bulk of the payments to later in 2021 or even 2022. One of the big concerns that my clients have is that the real uncertainty is what's going to happen in the beginning of 2021 with revenue collection. We haven't had to do this before. They haven't had to deal with a pandemic that caused folks to lose their jobs and those things. So there's really not a lot in the playbook that they can rely on. So I think one of the things that's going to be important in early 2021 is trying to move payments later in the year to allow the municipalities to better plan and really to structure their anticipated revenue when they have a better idea of how that's going to look in 2021.
Another option is that many of our municipal clients are providing rich benefit packages to their employees, and employees might not even use all of those benefits. If employee claims are less than the payment municipalities make to the insurance company, they might save money with a self-funded plan, right, Lee?
That's another great idea. One thing is, municipalities often have very nice benefit packages. That's one of the things that allows them to offer lower salaries. However, the employees are given very, very nice benefit packages. It's a great idea. However, as costs have increased, some of my clients have already started to look into self-funding their plans in one way or another to reduce those costs. And this is another instance of a time where that's probably going to be a really good idea. This allows them to allocate a certain amount of money to cover employee health expenses while also adding additional insurance on the back end to the extent that those costs exceed their expectations. It's less expensive than most insurance plans. However, I would note that you're really running really short on time if you would like to change your benefits package for healthcare especially. Most of those decisions need to be made in early October to mid-October.
That's great advice, Lee. And thanks so much for joining us today and for sharing these ideas. I want to encourage municipalities to contact you or I with any additional questions they have about preparing their budgets for next year. Just leave a comment below or send us a private message here on LinkedIn and we'll get back to you right away. Also, check out this website where we'll be posting more conversations and tips for weathering the financial challenges associated with COVID-19.